Football coaches approach their games with different strategies or tactics. And usually the better strategy wins the day. By the same token, when it comes to reading, to be able to get the best out of our reading, we need to employ seasoned and tested reading strategies. In this discussion, we're going to discuss some of those tested strategies like skimming, scanning, intensive and extensive reading, and we'll draw the curtain down by looking at Francis Robinson's SQ3R method for reading. So we're going to start with the first one, which is skimming. What is it? If you skim, you read selectively to get a general idea of what a reading material is about. So you just want to get a gist, a general idea, an overview of what the reading is about. And so if you skim, you read for main ideas, and sometimes you skip details. Of course, usually I should say, you skip details. Your focus is on the main ideas because it is the main ideas that will give you the gist, the overview, what the whole passage or article is about. How do you skim? You read a title, of course. The title helps you to know what is this about. You read a subtitle or introductory part, the headings, the keywords, and also you can read the last paragraph or the summary to be able to tell what a passage or an article, a reading material is about. But of course, it's not a detailed reading, so skimming has limitations. You cannot expect to retain facts and details because you're only looking for an overview, what this is about. And you do not expect more than 50% comprehension rate because you just want to know that this is about something. This is about football. This is about teenage pregnancy. This is about difficulties in finding a job. Once you get to know that, you may not be able to talk about details because you have gone only for the gist. So skimming as a reading strategy has limitations, such as these. Then the other method we like to discuss is scanning. Unlike skimming, even though both reading strategies are rapidly done, scanning is a rapid but focused reading to locate specific information rather than to absorb all the information. So if you contrast skimming and scanning, skimming is more general, while scanning is specific. When you scan, you look for specific information. But if you skim, you look for something general. You want to go for an overview. So while skimming is a general approach to reading, scanning is specific. When scanning, do not start from the beginning and read to the end, just like in the case of skimming. Jump around in the text trying to find the information you need. So both skimming and scanning are rapid styles of reading, but scanning is more specific while skimming is more general. What to scan? Of course, if you have a table of contents in a book or magazine, you want to see the table of content to see exactly what you're looking for, whether or not it's there. If it is there, you jump all the way to the page. Very simple. You can also scan a passage text article to quickly find the information mentioned in the question that you want to find an answer for. And of course, students, lecturers, teachers, you have a timetable you want to see when you have a lecture or a class, or when you have to teach. Then you're looking for a particular word in a dictionary. If the word begins with M, you would not start from A. You just go right into M and then go down to look for that particular word. So these are situations that call for scanning. Table of content, a timetable, a page of a dictionary, and so on. Then we have another form of reading, which is called intensive reading. It is more conscious form of reading than skimming and scanning. Intensive reading involves reading in detail with specific learning aims and tasks. When you read to expand knowledge about your subject of study at school, you are reading intensively. So students are given notes in a class and then they go back to assimilate the information in the note. To be able to understand everything that has been taught in class, you are doing intensive reading, usually in the domain of your study. So if you're a science student, for example, you're likely going to read about biology, chemistry, physics. If you are students of agriculture, you're going to read about farm implements, animals, cropping, and the rest. Usually, you read intensively in this domain to be able to expand your knowledge about your field of study. And it's a more detailed reading than skimming and scanning. How do you read intensively? You pay particular attention to facts and details. Everything matters. The facts, the detail, the examples, the illustrations, everything counts. Then what do you do to show that you really are reading it intensively? You make notes of new things you have learned. You make notes, your own notes, of course, which is different from taking notes in class. You take notes in class and you can make notes out of the notes you've taken. And of course, to show that you have read intensively, you also do more research to expand your mind, your horizon. And of course, one of the ways to prove you understand the document is to use your own words to explain to others what you have read, your own words. The ability to use own words means that you've understood every detail of what you have read to the point that you can simplify them with your words. And of course, you are able to summarize the main points. People choose summary, others also choose an outline. You can draw an outline from what you have read. You can give it a title, the main points, the minor point, the sub-minor points. All these will show that you have done a great reading intensively. The fact that everything you have read, you have well assimilated yourself into it, and you can give a good account of yourself to any other person who asks of what you have read. That is intensive reading in a particular area of interest. Then we can contrast intensive reading with extensive reading. What is it? Reading for the sake of knowledge and enjoyment. Intensively, usually students, lecturers, you read to build your area of interest to be able to teach or to be able to answer questions during examinations. But if you read extensively, you read for the sake of knowledge, to enjoy life, to expand your horizon. So you can see the young lady in the library reading for fun, to get to know the world, other than reading specifically in her course area. She reads to open her mind. And there's a fine thing for all students to learn. Sometimes you need to expand your mind outside your field of study. If you're a science student, read some history. If you're a history student, read some biology, read some novel. These things are fine to open our minds. Now, we have some benefits of extensive reading as we do of intensive reading. Extensive reading, you have gains in reading and writing competence. If you read, you metaphorically steal people's ideas, their style of writing, their style of speaking, and you are able to add that to your own competence. So the more you read, the better you become at reading, the better you become at writing, because you're going to come across new words you have never heard, new expressions, how to use them, and add them to your already existing words and expressions. What happens is that you have vocabulary growth as you gain competence in reading and writing. Your vocabulary, no doubt, grows. And then you have self-motivation and self-esteem because you are building upon knowledge. And if you have knowledge, it builds upon your self-esteem. And then you are able to develop what is called empathy, to feel for somebody exactly the way the thing is affecting the person. If you read, you get into the minds of people and you can understand how people feel. If you read about history, wars, and how people run away from wars and how they become psychologically affected. You can get into the mind of a victim of war and understand exactly how they feel. That understanding is what is called empathy, the ability to feel and understand another human. You can get such a quality from extensive reading. And of course, another fine thing, you can become an autonomous learner. You become an autodidact, the ability to learn on your own, self-taught person. Of course, it is not everything that we know that we are taught in school. We are taught very limited things in school. But the ability to expand your mind is to become a self-learner. If you teach yourself many things by reading, your mind opens, you'll be able to understand the world in which you live and articulate your thoughts very well. And of course, all knowledge is ultimately self-knowledge. Everything you ever know at the end of the day is about yourself. Even if you learn about the planet Mars, you get to know the role you play as an individual in the universe. So whatever knowledge you have, you get from reading extensively as up to your self-knowledge. So by all means, continue to read extensively. Now we're going to talk about some of the reading strategies. This one was developed by Francis P. Robinson, an American author in 1946. So this is quite old. We call the SQ3R method. So the S stands for survey, the Q stands for question, and then the three R's. The first R stands for read, the second for recite, the third for review. What does this method of reading mean? Survey, something just like skimming or scanning, says scan the text, but if you scan the text, pay attention to the layout, the chapters, the sections, the graphs, the pictures, the highlighted words, so that you'll be able to tell that this document in front of me, this novel, this historical book, this nonfiction, it's about this. So when you survey, you pay particular attention to the headings, the section, the graphs, even the pictures, and the highlighted words to know that this is about this. Then after having an overview of the document by means of the survey, you definitely have some questions you want to ask yourself. So on the question we have, ask yourself questions about the text. What am I reading? What is it about? What does the author want me to understand? What lesson do I draw from this? What is this contributing to society? You have many questions based on what you have read, and you want those questions to be answered. So you ask yourself questions about the text. You ask yourself questions about things you already know and what you think what the author wants to communicate. And then you want to find answers to those questions. And that is the beginning of the first R, read, which is read a text actively, consciously, while keeping the previous steps in the back of your mind, which is the survey and the question. Write down additional questions and try to answer the asked questions. So as you read, you want to find answers to the question. Remember the survey time and the question time, and you want to make sure that you are now reading more consciously, no longer to have an overview, but to get to the very bottom of the information in the text you read. And you need to write down additional questions and try to answer the question that you have asked. So if you asked earlier that, what is the lesson in this text? And you can answer that successfully, then you are really doing a good reading. If you're not able to answer, you want to reread. Now, from the section of reading, you move on to the second R, which is to recite. That is a term. You may think it has to like to recite a poem. No, it's a technical term over there, which means to want to review kind of things, to want to go over, even though we have another one called review though. So you repeat. That is why the term is called recite. You repeat aloud in your own words what you have read. So it's like a summary. You have read a document and you can use your own words to summarize it. You are reciting. So you repeat in your own words what you have read. Ask yourself questions about the text. Explain to someone you have read what you have read and try to write a summary. So the ability to explain to someone what you have read means you really understand it. That is why it is called recite. Then the final R, review. It says, read all the relevant parts again. Someone can choose to read the entire thing again. So go through your notes and questions again. Pay extra attention to the parts you find difficult. So when you are reviewing, you are making sure that you successfully did a survey, the questions you have read again, you can summarize the words, what you have read in your own words. Now you have the ability to review, to go back. Are my questions answered successfully? If all of them are answered successfully, the most difficult part of the text, do I now understand them? If all these questions are answered successfully, hallelujah, you have done a great job. And now you really have taken the image of the text right into your mind and they get stuck over there. So these are the fine reading strategies that we can employ. These are known, tested, seasoned, and people still employ them today. So if you face any difficult text, you can use the SQ3R method and you'll be a successful reader. Thank you. Have a wonderful time.